All right, Hamilton Elite, we're here with Coach Mark Stauffer from Misericordia University in Pennsylvania. Coach, welcome. Difficult times. Hope everybody's safe.
Thank you.
So question number one we have for you today. Please tell us about yourself, your school, and your sports program.
Sure. I've been the head women's coach here for 20 years. I've been fortunate to be able to build a quality program at a quality institution where we can be successful both on the field and off the field, which is extremely important to the young women that we recruit. Soccer program wise, we're a predominant top 25 team in the country. One of our challenges is always convincing players or getting them to understand how good of a program we are. With the Division III being labeled Division III, so many people think that Division III just sits lower than Division I and II. However, all our scrimmages are against Division I and Division II programs, where we regularly find results against those teams. So we just need to get kids to understand that you can play an extremely high level of soccer at Misericordia while you're also studying one of the most successful and demanding health science majors in the country. It is our bread and butter. Probably 90% of my roster are health science kids of physical therapy, occupational therapy, nursing, speech and language pathology, physician's assistant, things along those lines. Most of our recruits have Division I and Division II offers. But they simply choose us because we allow them to not only, like I mentioned before, play at a high level, but they can get their degree with us and come out with their master's or their doctorate degree and set themselves up for a career that they want to move forward with.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good stuff. Could you tell us a little bit about your coaching style?
From a personality standpoint, I really take a lot of time to get to know my players. I'm a people person when it comes to that. I certainly don't train player A the same way as I train player B. So many players need to be dealt with differently and encouraged differently and motivated differently. I'm going to train hard during our sessions. I'm going to motivate, I'm going to encourage. During matches, it's pretty much time for players to go out and perform all the successes that they can, and that's their chance to play. Style-wise, we train an indirect style of play. We knock the ball around quite a bit. We hold possession. But, when we play some teams that sit in and pack it in on us pretty tight sometimes, we're going to have to go direct to stretch them back out again before we so we really try to teach our players the game and get them to get a true understanding of that.
Okay. And you mentioned a little bit about healthcare is, I guess, the backbone of your university academically. Do you have anything? What else do you kind of specialize, or is that your number one specialty?
It is our number one specialty. We are considered a health science school. However, we have a multitude of other majors. Education's a fairly big one for us because if you want to go elementary ed, we can get you multiple certified with elementary ed, special ed, and elementary ed, special ed, and early childhood, and you can still get done in 4 years with getting all three certifications. That's another big one for us. Another one that's really become important lately is government law and national security, which is a really good major for a lot of our students. But we have the standard array of majors where we can accommodate most kids of what they're looking for. But our drive and our focus is truly our health science.
Okay. Back to recruiting. In a typical year, how many freshmen do you typically bring in per year, or does it vary? Or
yeah, that's going to change from year to year based on positional needs, based on graduating classes. If we have any kids coming back from medical red shirts that we weren't expecting to come back, and so on. I would say on average, a class is between 5 and 10. For example, our 2020 class is a specific class that we didn't need a ton in, so we're bringing in 5 kids in the 2020 class. In our 2021s, we're planning on bringing in a class right around 10. We already have 5 of those committed at this point, so we're about halfway done with our 2021s at this point, but that will vary based on the year.
Okay. And, you know, based on this year, which is going to be rather difficult for both the recruits and your recruiting process, what are you doing? What do you anticipate or doing differently this year than you haven't done ever before?
Yeah, just a lot more online stuff. I think we've been fortunate from the standpoint of we already had all of our 2021 kids that we were serious with already had been on campus, already had done their full visits, already had done ID clinics. So now it's just kind of decision and commitment time for them. I think this jumped on them a little bit from the standpoint of a lot of the 2021 recruits wanted one last opportunity to, check out a campus or come to one last ID clinic. So that's going to affect them there a little bit. But our 2022 class, it's just going to slow the process of that down a little bit, where we would typically have our entire class identified going into this summer. I think it's going to trickle into the fall a bit more, where visits are just going to be later, where all the March, April, May visits that would typically be happening are now going to unfortunately have to happen in September, October, and November.
Right. And what advice would you give to any unsigned 2021s and then the rising juniors the following year for 2022?
Yeah, for the 2021 specifically, I think it's be proactive. You got to recruit yourself to the programs. Do something to separate yourself in the recruiting process. Be consistent with coaches that you're interested in. I think the biggest negative thing that happens to recruits, unfortunately, is they wait to truly be recruited by a program, where so many collegiate programs want to know that the interest is there if they're going to start putting in the time and effort to being serious with a recruit. So I think the piece I'd want to get out is just for recruits to do their own recruiting, let coaches know how serious they are about them, and ask the difficult questions. I think any coach that's worth what their program is doesn't shy from any questions. They're willing to answer them. When recruits ask me who I'm recruiting, what my class looks like, I tell them because that's part of it. And I think at the end of the day, that's what recruits want. They want honesty, and it's what we want as coaches as well.
Sure. And I'm guessing something that turns you off about a recruit is dishonesty. If they were, leading you to believe that they were interested and they weren't interested, but what are some other things that would turn you off about a certain recruit, both on the field and off?
Yeah, the 3 biggest things. One would be the dishonesty, which we've already talked about a bit. The second would be a lack of detail in communication. It's frustrating as a college coach when a kid comes to an ID clinic. We watch the kid, we give them an evaluation, we tell them where they are in our recruiting process, and then you send the kid an email, you send the kid a text, you give them a phone call, and 3 weeks go by and they don't get back to you. We don't expect to hear back in 24 hours. We know people's lives are busy. But then, a lot of times a recruit will just blow you off for 3-4 weeks, and then all of a sudden they'll call you, and then they need information, and they expect the information in 24 hours. That's my job. I'm going to get you the information for any questions you ask. I just ask that recruits just stay up with the process. Even if you don't have an answer, if I ask them a question through a phone call or an email, whatever, and they don't have an answer, it's okay to get back to me and just be like, hey, coach, thanks for reaching out. I'm not sure yet. I don't know what schools I'm down to, but keep the correspondence alive. It's also how we develop relationships with recruits. The more interactive they can be, certainly helps us get to know them as a person. And then the third biggest turnoff would just be social media stuff. It's a huge piece that I think too many recruits don't realize is being tracked and followed. And I'll be honest, we probably stop recruiting 50% of the kids that we start the recruiting process with, simply because we're not happy with the type of person they're being in their social media world, and it's just not something we want to make part of our program, to be honest.
What are some once you do recruit a player and he's on, if they're with you and it's their freshman year and it's after the season. What do you expect from them for during the off season?
Yeah, our kids are going to train year round. Fitness to them is 365 days a year. It takes too long to build a fitness base to just give up on it for 6 weeks after the season and then start over. So fitness is year round. For our program, we'll have our full season where they're going to either be playing or training 6 days a week. On their off day, they're still going to get fitness in. The players that need to get technical work in are also going to get technical work in their seventh day. Once the season's over, they're doing their fitness and workout groups in groups together. So for the rest of December, January, and February, they'll be training about an hour and 45 minutes a day. And that'll be speed and agility training, plyometrics, ball work, small-sided games, full-sided matches. So about an hour and 45 minutes a day for those 3 months. And then in March and April, we get to train again, just like we're back in season. And then their summer development, their 12-week buildup starts in May, right up into preseason. The thing we tell our players when we're recruiting them is your priorities have to be your family first, your academic work second, and our soccer program third. A positive social life is going to come fourth and on the back end. If there's a kid that wants to be a partier and a social butterfly when they go to school, there's a school out there for them that will allow them to do that and play soccer and be competitive. It just wouldn't be at Misericordia because we really only recruit kids that keep their priorities in that order. But our kids are going to work. We're going to work year round.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Once you sign a player commits or a recruit commits, what's the process for them after that?
Yeah, from a soccer standpoint, honestly, that's when it starts with us. That's when I watch players after they commit to me just as much as when I'm recruiting them, because I want to start developing pieces of their game. It gives me 14 months per se to develop that player's game and fix a couple of their weaknesses and deficiencies, so they're ready to compete by the time they get to us. So from a soccer standpoint, we really start our development process once that commitment happens. And then just from a financial aid standpoint and an academic standpoint, we just help walk them through the process and tell them when they should be sending their full application into the school, encouraging them and giving them some insight as to how they should fill that out. They always have questions, obviously, about financial aid, where we have to direct them through financial aid. But we're basically the go-to person from that point to answer all their questions for them, because at that point I'm dealing with 5 to 10 kids. Our admissions office is going to be dealing with thousands, so I'm going to be able to serve that recruit so much better than if they weren't recruited by us and part of our program at that point.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, that's all the questions I have from Hamilton Elite. Do you have any questions about our club or anything in general down here in South Jersey or for soccer?
Yeah, basically from the standpoint of, what are your challenges from the standpoint of getting kids recruited? What do you hear from the kids of what they want more from college coaches or their frustrations with college coaches in the recruiting process?
Right. Well, we've tried to stress to all of our players, and we have a pretty good group of anywhere from sophomores to juniors and a couple seniors right now. We've done a pretty good job of stressing to them that really they have to market themselves and go to ID clinics, and it's a lot of it's on them. We do a lot of things during the off season as well to kind of guide them into those directions. And the kids that are motivated and want, that started, with what's going on now, that started their sophomore year, they're on a good track. The ones that have waited, like you said earlier, that waiting for somebody to come to them, they're in they're a little bit of a pickle right now. So we've tried to help keep them motivated during this time. I guess we're about about a month into our quarantine and our lockdown, and we are doing what we can to help them stay motivated, stay not just with soccer, but academically as well.
Good deal. Yeah, and that's something that, I'm probably a little different than I think a lot of college coaches where I want to help kids find the right school. You know, there are times kids come to our ID clinics and for whatever reason, they're just not the perfect fit for us, but they're still a quality player. I take it upon myself to really help and encourage those kids and maybe give them some ideas of a couple schools that may be perfect fits for them. Because at the end of the day, as we already talked about, we're recruiting 5 to 10 kids, but every institution out there has their specific niche that they're looking for in a recruit. And, you know, I would encourage recruits and these high school sophomores, juniors, don't get frustrated with the situation. You know, keep looking, find the major you want to study, find the schools that have that major and are within the geographical area that you're willing to travel to, and then really get moving in that recruiting process. And if you start early enough, by the end of it, you'll find one that is the perfect fit for you, both you and them.
All right, Coach. Well, Coach Mark, we appreciate you popping in and doing this Zoom interview, and hopefully everything will go back to normal sooner rather than later.
Fingers crossed, and best wishes, and feel free to reach out if you have anything further with recruits moving forward.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, buddy.